Welcome to the Born for Greatness podcast. I am so excited. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Deborah Ault, although many of you may know her as Nurse Deb. She is an RN, is a healthcare strategist, author, and speaker with more than 30 years of experience spanning medical management, evidence-based care oversight, patient advocacy, and employer-sponsored health plan design. Her work focuses on aligning a clinical accountability, patient safety, equity, and sustainable healthcare economics. Known for her bold, patient centered approach to healthcare reform, Deborah has contributed to multiple books on healthcare leadership, patient advocacy, and system transformation, and was featured in the healthcare documentary It's Not Personal, It's Just Healthcare. So, through her writing, speaking, and consulting, she challenges traditional healthcare models while advocating for transparency, accountability, and outcomes driven care that serves both patients and employers. Welcome, Nurse Deb.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I have had the pleasure of hearing you speak on a few stages, kind of within the industry, and heard a little bit about your story. But can you take us back to exactly how you got started in your career? I know it spans nursing, healthcare reform, entrepreneurship, a whole ton of things. So give us a quick overview.
Yeah. Well, I actually started as a candy striper as a teenager a
Oh, wow.
whole years ago. Yeah. That's where I fell in
That's
love with nursing. I always thought
that's
I'd be
really
a
neat.
doctor, but man, the life doctors have to live, and especially today, the life they have to live. Wow.
That's
Talk
so true.
about, very difficult and demanding. But
Hmm.
Candy Striper became a nurse, worked in the ER, the ICU, at the bedside, taking care of patients. Loved the tech side of that. I was a great
Hmm.
night shift ICU nurse. I loved all that
Oh, wow.
technology and the gadgets and the balloon pumps and the ventilators and all of that.
Yep.
But I had an experience in an ICU where a patient was admitted. I was the charge nurse. I was reluctant to accept the admission because the
Hmm.
facility didn't really have all of the equipment and expertise that was needed to care for that patient. But the ER doctor talked me into taking the patient by saying, we're just going to admit him until we stabilize him, and then we'll transfer him to a higher level facility. He's too unstable to transfer right now. So
Hmm.
I accepted the admission. I worked 13 12-hour night shifts in a row working with that
Wow.
patient because I was the only one who worked night shift who was certified to handle the complexity of his care. And on the last night that I left, I told the day shift nurse they brought in a traveling nurse, a travel nurse, to
Hmm.
care for him in the daytime because of the certifications and things that were required. And I said to that nurse, you better make sure you keep him well sedated today because we're weaning the balloon pump. And as
Mm.
we're doing that, he's getting more agitated and he was so swollen, kind of like the little muffin man. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Barry
Yes, I
Doughboy.
do.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was so swollen, he looked like that. And I just knew if he accidentally extubated himself and got himself off the ventilator, that they would not be able to get him reintubated. So I went home, went to bed. About 3 o'clock, I got a phone call. It was my nurse manager, and she said, "Hey, you don't have to come in tonight." And I'm like, "Oh, they got him transferred." She said, no. And exactly what I had warned them about is what happened, and he passed away. And
Oh.
I was devastated, hysterical. And it really turned out to be a pivotal moment because I was like, I should have never
Mm.
agreed to admit him. It's all my fault, you know, all of that. And I was
Yeah.
hysterical on the phone with her. And she said, she stopped me. And I said, I just don't understand. I don't understand. And she said to me, do you know how much money we would have lost if we would have transferred that patient? And I I went berserk, right? It was not
Wow.
pretty because that's not why I got into healthcare. I got into healthcare to take care of people, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and it was bad. It was messy, right? I went into a severe
Yes.
depression. My husband was like, you have to work. We have a mortgage and we have
Hmm.
an infant and, you know,
Yeah.
you have to work. So while I was doing that, had been going to school and got my bachelor's in business with a minor in math and statistics. And I
Oh,
love tech, right? So there was a
yeah.
managed care company that was looking for nurses. And I was convinced managed care is evil. It's all managed care's fault. They're the ones that
Hmm.
are tightening the purse strings. They're why we can't take good care of patients, yada, yada. Well, my husband applied for the job for me, took me through
Mm.
the interview, right? Come to
Yep.
find out, very fortunately, they were practicing Catherine Mullohay's patient advocacy based managed care. Like, if we improve the quality of care, if we get people healthier faster, it will
Hmm.
cost less. And that's where I first got exposed to the fee for service nature of US healthcare,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
So
Hmm.
it doesn't make sense because we think when you're healthier, of course, it's going to be cheaper, right?
Right.
But in fee for service healthcare, every procedure, every prescription, every test, every surgery generates income for the business of healthcare. And that's the classic rub that I have spent my life since then battling. So, wound up in managed care, eventually grew in those organizations, went out on our own about 30 years ago. So, I had that whole entrepreneurial experience.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, boy, building your own company, not for the faint of heart, let me tell you. And
Yes.
recently sold that company. So had a successful exit from that adventure and was fortunate to sell it to a customer. So the
Oh,
beauty of
wow.
that is I truly believe that they're going to carry that model forward. Some of our
Hmm.
competitors put in pretty outsized offers, which was interesting to me. And I
Yeah.
actually said to one of them, the only reason you're offering us this much money is because you
Hmm.
want to silence us, right? You just want
Yeah.
to buy the model and shelf it. And they're like, well, I'm like, yeah,
Wow.
we're not going to do that, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but anyway, so now I'm freelancing. I was told last week that I don't do retirement right. So apparently you're not
Oh,
supposed to keep working when you retire, but when it's a
yeah.
passion and it's a calling, you don't have much choice.
That is so true. And I know that now you're going to get into some speaking roles, and I think that will be fantastic, giving you the chance to impart your wisdom and knowledge to so many people because you have such a wealth of knowledge. And people, I think, like I know so many young, I have boys and their girlfriends are wanting to go into nursing. Do you think that there's like any idea for those younger gals or gentlemen who were thinking about getting into the trade of nursing, what really is entailed in the job?
Oh, you know, it's good that they're idealistic and naive going in.
Good
I
point.
think
Yeah.
that that's a plus. And
Hmm.
really, if more of us stayed focused on the heart of caring for people, especially on the health insurance side, that would be a
Yeah.
very, very good thing. So I think there is a lot of hope for them. I am really worried about our profession. I'm discouraged by all of the acts of violence that are happening against nurses,
Mm.
and not just by patients and visitors, right? There's toxic environments being bred within the health delivery
Yeah.
system because the focus has been so intensively on money and
Hmm.
the greed has just gotten out of hand.
Yeah.
I don't begrudge anybody making a profit. I'm a capitalist
Right.
like everybody else, right? I built a company,
Yes.
I sold a company, and I made money
Yep.
doing that. And that's a
Right.
good thing. But when
Hmm.
your profit margins are thousands of percentages over what it costs you to acquire the drug, or when it's that drastically above cost, and
Mm.
I get it. We have a phenomenal health system in Columbus, Ohio, where I live. We have three different main competitors in the market. The one that everybody goes to is the one that has the grand piano in the lobby and the valet parking and the beautiful artwork collection in the hallway. But those really
Hmm.
are not things that are cost of care, right?
Yeah.
So when that hospital or health system tells me that they're losing money, I go, yeah, right. Okay.
Hmm.
No, you're really not. And then when you add into that nonprofit status of a lot of these
Hmm.
facilities, not only are they raking in massive amounts of money, but they're not paying their fair share in taxes. It's
Yeah.
just, the system is definitely very, very broken.
Yeah, that's so true. You built, I know, a reputation for saying what others won't. Is that something that's always come naturally to you, or is that something you had to work on or develop?
I really had to develop that ability. In some respects, I was fortunate because I served in the Army National Guard, and part of that, I served as a drill sergeant.
Oh,
So I
wow.
learned how to put on that persona of force,
Hmm.
and that served me very well in this industry. Also, though, a bit to a negative. You know,
Hmm.
when I was fortunate enough to win an award at the U Powered Symposium, and they asked me if I wanted walk on music.
Hmm.
And I really embraced the bitch persona,
Yes.
because somebody had to do it. And I think that
Hmm.
was the biggest challenge in US healthcare, and probably is even today, is the system does a very good job of convincing individual patients that they are
Hmm.
the most unlucky person on the planet. It
Mm,
was
yeah.
just them. But when you step back and you look at how many just thems are coming out of the system with poor outcomes,
Hmm.
you begin to realize that's not true. The truth is the system itself is
Yeah.
dysfunctional and broken. And until people get angry enough about that and
Hmm.
dissatisfied enough with that to actually take action and do something about it, the system will never get overhauled, repaired, changed in any
Hmm.
way, shape, or form. There's actually a formula called the Beckard change model that talks
Okay.
about that you have to have a level of dissatisfaction that is very high before you
Mm,
are willing to undertake change. And so a lot of that persona is born out of trying to get people to become forceful, challenged enough, fearless enough to move
hmm.
forward in changing something that is definitely not working well.
Yeah, I love that you say you take on that persona, but it comes from a heart that cares about people and wants the best for them. And I think maybe we don't always stop and see that when we see a certain persona. We assume someone, isn't soft or tenderhearted or has the right motives. And I think that that's really great that you still encompass that and use your your kindness and your passion to really advocate for change and advocate for these patients. So
Yeah, I think
that's
one of the
incredible.
biggest things that we learn as nurses is we talk about patients as a holistic being, right?
Mm,
It's not just their disease, it's not just their room number, but we look at social
mhm,
determinants of health. We look at socioeconomic issues. We take into
mm.
consideration religion, right? Certain
Yeah.
religions have different treatment things. And so nurses have always been trained to treat the individual patient.
Hmm.
Nowadays, with fancy terminology, we call that patient centered care. One of the
Yes.
models that I built is called P3CM, patient centric comprehensive care management, right? It's putting
Mm,
the patient at the center of the equation. And I
yeah.
think if everybody could get back to that, if
Hmm.
hospitals and health insurance companies and employers and benefit brokers and the government could all say, let's focus on the patient. What's
Yes.
best for the patient holistically? Because you can
Hmm.
treat them clinically and bankrupt them financially. That's not cool, right?
So
Or
true. Yeah.
you can, I mean, we've lived through the HMO days. You can
Mm-hmm.
focus on controlling costs so aggressively that you compromise the clinical safety,
Yes.
right? It's that balance. You can't divorce quality and cost. Those always
Mm.
have to be considered together. When you start separating those two and focusing on one or the other, that's when you get into dangerous territory.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest misconception that people have about healthcare reform?
Oh, the biggest. There are so many misconceptions. It's hard to figure out which one's going to be the
I
biggest.
know.
Um, I think the biggest is that any individual silo can enact reform or be successful at reform. And that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I made 30 years ago. So
Mm,
a lot of people say the government's not going to fix it for you. Well,
right.
that's true. Um, and I thought that 30 years ago, and that's why I went into the self funded employer sponsored market,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yep.
double the number of people in employer sponsored health plans that there are in the government covered plans, right?
Yes.
Um, and I thought employers can make changes more quickly. They're more rational in their thinking, you know. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
go into the employer market. There's an
Right.
opportunity there, and you can make
Mm-hmm.
a massive shift. If you could move the private insurance sector, if you could move it,
Mm-hmm.
like the rest of the world would follow, right? Um, man, talk about an uphill battle, right?
So
Employers
true.
just want to focus on what their core niche is, and they didn't
Yeah.
necessarily realize you're actually running a healthcare company in addition to your widget company because
Yes.
it's sucking down so much of your spend, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
such a huge number on your P&L. And
Yeah.
so getting employers to recognize and understand that and focus on it and to overcome the fact that they've been lied to for the last 30 years and been told
Exactly.
there's nothing you can do about it. Healthcare is just expensive. And, you know, there's so
Mm-hmm.
much money that we spend in research and development. That's BS, by the way. You know, there's just
Mm-hmm.
all these lies that they've been told. And then somebody like me walks in and goes, yeah, that's all bumpkus. You've been lied to. I'm sorry that you fell for it, but now you need to do
Mm-hmm.
something totally different. It's so shocking to them and it's so
Yeah.
harmful to their ego to think, I'm a smart person. I built this entire
Yeah.
company building this entire widget thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And I fell for that. No, that can't be true. And certainly Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna, Humana, every insurance carrier on the planet wouldn't be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, wrong or doing things
Right.
that are not cool or, you know, nobody ever
Yeah.
got fired for hiring IBM, right?
Mm. Yes.
Nobody ever got fired for having a big name insurance carrier either. So getting
Mm-hmm.
people to, they're not dissatisfied. They might be like, man, that it takes a big chunk of our revenue, but it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. And if it could be fixed, the big names would be fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
Getting over
Yep.
that hurdle. So I think it has to be both. I think the private market absolutely has to stand up and force change, right? The
Yeah.
purchaser, the employer, the patient has to say
Absolutely.
insurance companies have to change. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the government does have to step in. I think that
Mm.
until they start changing and enforcing
Yes.
aggressively with high enough penalties, a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
regulations that are already in place, because honestly, some of those are just a slap on the wrist to these big hospitals. When you're
Yeah.
making billions of dollars and you get a couple
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 fine, so cost
Right.
of
Yeah.
doing
It
business.
doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. So I think both of those things are going to have to happen because we've let it get so far out of control
Mm-hmm.
and the money is so big,
Yes.
right? And it's a challenge. I mean, the number one contributors to political campaigns,
Mm-hmm.
Hospitals, health systems, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, right? All the people on the money side of the equation in health insurance. So it's I think it's at a tipping point though. I think we're on the cusp of change. The question is, how do we make change that is ethical, that is
Mm.
safe clinically? So like AI coming into healthcare,
Yes. Yep.
right? Love it, love it, love it. I'm the techie gal. Like I love
Yes.
all that, right?
Yeah.
Except who is training it clinically,
It's a great point.
right? So, perfect example. We all know that the most expensive place to go get a colonoscopy is a hospital. An
Yes.
independent surgery center would be way better, right?
Yep.
Except if you're a hemophiliac, it would be
Mm.
unsafe to go to an independent surgery center. You need to go to a hospital
Yes.
because if there's a complication, you're probably going to die before you get to care if you have it in an ambulatory surgery center.
Mm-hmm.
Who's teaching those nuances to the AIs? So when somebody goes in and asks ChatGPT, where's the best place to get a colonoscopy,
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the other thing that worries me, there's not a whole lot of governance happening with AI.
Yes.
So
That's
what
mm-hmm.
happens when one of the AIs tell a hemophiliac the best place is an ambulatory surgery center because it is higher quality and it
Yeah.
is lower cost. It's just not the best for that particular patient because of their comorbid conditions.
Right.
Patient follows that advice and something does go wrong,
Mm-hmm. That's so true. That's scary.
right?
That's really scary.
So, I mean, the
That's
tools are there for reform, you know,
mm-hmm.
to encourage adherence to evidence-based clinical criteria, right?
Yeah.
MCG publishes the criteria. They have been for almost 30 years. Everybody buys them. All the insurance companies, all the hospitals, they all buy MCG. All the doctors have access to it. They probably don't know they have access to it. They've probably never been
Yes.
trained on it. They probably aren't using it. But
Mm-hmm.
with AI, we could make those things happen.
Yeah.
We just need to make sure they happen safely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like we see that all the time, right? AI is coming in and it's such an amazing tool. And you think about the safety that needs to go around it and the privacy, but it's a whole nother level when you're talking about inside of the healthcare industry. That is such a good point, and I really hope that that all comes um, into place because that could be really scary if not handled properly. So,
Absolutely. Yeah,
wow. Okay, so I know that you are a woman of faith. So, how would you say that you discern the difference between a good opportunity and a God-given assignment?
oh boy. Sometimes a good opportunity conflicts with your God given assignment as well. And that is a whole different ball of wax. I think something is a God given assignment, number one, when it aligns with the biblical word, right?
Mm,
So God's
yep.
never going to ask you to do something that is outside of the Bible.
Yes.
The other is when you have that kind of constant nagging that
Mm-hmm.
I need to do this. I have to take this step. I have to take that step. I think the biggest challenge that we as believers have when we get those massive callings and looking back at when I was called to start my own company and to begin undertaking this, we as human beings feel like I'm not qualified to do that. And the fact that you're not qualified to do it, but you're being called to do it is probably the easiest indicator that, yes, you are
Yeah.
being called to do it because God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called.
Yes.
And the challenge that I had in living that out is having the patience to
Mm,
let the qualification happen.
oh,
So
that's
now that
good.
30 plus years away from
Yeah.
that path, I can look back and go, I became a nurse for these reasons. I loved the math and science. I loved the
Mhm.
technology. I left the bedside. If it had been up to me, I would have never left
Mhm.
the bedside. I'd still be working in ICU Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, right?
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
so as I look back at some of those events, and then like I wound up in managed care, but not just any managed care, one that was
Mhm.
focused on an advocacy approach, right? And then I had the opportunity to help be one of the founding members of the board certification for patient advocacy. And then I was able to bring the math in to marry up with the clinical. And so in hindsight, I can see those
Mhm.
qualifications happening, like
Yeah.
being a drill sergeant. Who never thought I'd be a drill sergeant, right?
Right.
But that opportunity came along. I embraced it. And then it has served
Mhm.
me the rest of my life. So I think not every opportunity is a good one,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Pray about it, get into the word, study
Mhm.
about it, see does it align. Don't be in a huge hurry to jump at every opportunity, which is hard
That's
for us as Americans, right?
so hard. Yep. Yep.
Um, and if it aligns with, the word, it's not going to be a bad thing to try. The other thing is, I think we can't be afraid to fail.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
You
And
know,
so many people are.
and Christians can fail,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But the other thing that I've learned is what appears to be a failure at that point in time
Mm.
is not necessarily a failure, right? So my
Yeah.
latest, I have a tattoo. I don't know if you can see it. It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
semicolon.
Love
Um,
it.
it's not over until God says it's over.
Yes.
And sometimes the darkest times, the most painful times that you're going through
Hmm.
is really just the fire forging you into strength for the next thing. That's really hard to see in the moment. I
It
get
is.
it. But I would say people who are going through that, reach out, let people know you're
Mm.
going through it. Um,
Yeah.
there's got to be somebody in your life, whether it's a family member or a pastor, a colleague in the industry, a random stranger on a helpline. Let somebody
Yeah.
know. Don't try to go through those hard times alone,
Mm.
because it can be, devastating to do that. But if you can just keep breathing and keep moving through that moment, what you will find on the other side is that you're much stronger and better off because of it.
Yeah. That's great advice. And I do feel like going through when you're in it, you can't see it. But if you listen to everybody who's been through it and looking back, they can see how God's walked them through something and how it has prepared them for something greater or a call that you have on your life. And so it's such great advice. I love that. Would you say, though, that there's been seasons where your faith has been tested by the work that you've done over the years? And how have you dealt with that?
Oh boy. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us go through life without having seasons that test our faith.
Mm,
Um, how did I deal with it? I was very fortunate that I have very strong relationships, you know, um,
yeah.
with my pastor, with a small group. We have been
Yes.
going to the same Friday night small group. Now, number one, think about that. Friday night, the night that we
Yeah.
used to party, is now the night that we go to Bible study, right?
Right.
So that's interesting in and of itself. But
That
since
is.
2011, my husband and I have been
Wow.
going to the same Friday night small group Bible study, and
Wow.
that's essentially a family unit to
Hmm.
us. Um,
Yeah.
and that getting support and being able to give support. that
Mm-hmm.
relationship has been really critical to the times that my faith has been tested. Because
Mm.
there are times that I'm like, that's it, I give up. And they'd
Yeah.
be like, you don't really give up. We'll carry
Yeah.
you through this for a couple of days, but you don't
Hmm.
really, no. That's
Yes.
not in your nature. You're tired, you need a rest, take a vacation. And that does happen, but some of it is just dogged determination to persevere.
Mm. Oh, that was good. That was good. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think having those relationships, like you said, is so helpful. I mean, we need community as human beings, and it is so important to have them in our lives, different people who can minister or speak into our lives, especially when we're going through difficulty or maybe changing a career. Or I'm sure it was very instrumental having someone when you were, even if it was just your husband of going, I think I'm going to leave the bedside and go start a company. I mean, that must have been really scary.
Yeah. There's no place to go but up when you're at the
Yeah,
bottom of the barrel, right? So,
that's true.
at that point, anything. But I'll tell you, those first several months of not getting a paycheck, the first year we were in business, we were bringing in $800 a month in revenue.
Oof,
Yeah.
that's tough.
So, but we were able to grow that to over $3 million a year. We were able to, and,
Amazing.
we hit our ceiling, right?
Hmm.
And I was becoming the lid, right? I couldn't
Yes.
take that further. So the only way for it to grow and morph and become what it needs to be was to sell it. But I'll tell you, selling a company that you have put 25 years into, it is as hard as your child getting married.
That's a good point. It's your baby, right?
It is. It is. And you're putting it into someone else's hands. And
Hmm.
yes, you're making money off of that. And yes, that's a good thing, but it's still extraordinary. That's probably one of the most difficult, short of the death of my parents, probably
Mm.
the most difficult thing I've done in my life. And that's saying something for
Wow.
somebody who was a soldier, right?
Yes, that is
So,
very true.
but yeah, yeah, it's probably one of the hardest things I've done. Not that it wasn't a good thing, right? It was
Hmm.
good for me, my family. It's good for the employees that, were our other family.
Yeah.
It's good for the company. It's, all those things, but that doesn't mean that it was easy. And that was very faith trying as well. I actually ended up writing some Bible studies called but
Hmm.
stalled, stalled then filled. I'm working on one now, Jesus Wept.
Yes.
So it if you can stay immersed in the word, you can get through those
Hmm.
tough times and have
Yeah,
support. Don't try to do it alone.
that's really good advice. So, for somebody who might be thinking about going out on their own and becoming an entrepreneur, do you have a few like main pieces of advice that you'd want to give someone?
Don't do it. um,
Truth.
I mean, I say it slightly facetiously, but not
Right.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you absolutely have to. And by have to, I mean you can't find a job anywhere else doing anything else, so you might as well be an entrepreneur. Or the calling is so nagging
Mm,
that you're like, I have to do this.
yeah.
Unless you have to do it, don't. Because it is so all consuming. It takes every bit of your energy, your physical and emotional energy. It's going to challenge you in ways that you never thought you would ever be challenged. There's no way to prepare for it, right? I don't care
Hmm.
what courses you take, it's not going to prepare
Yep.
you for the reality of it.
Yeah.
You're going to have such an emotional roller coaster. Some of the
Hmm.
best highs of your life and some of the lowest lows of your life are going to come from that entrepreneurship journey. So, unless you have to do it, I wouldn't recommend it.
I think that is some of the most truth I've heard because it's been so glamorized of like, don't work a 9 to 5, be an entrepreneur. And people don't understand, just like you said, it takes everything. And I also think as believers, you can have an impact and you might be called to work for somebody else. And
Absolutely.
that's just as good as branching out on your own and doing something. You don't have to have a calling that requires you to be your own boss. You can still do so many great things within an organization. So thank
Yeah.
you for saying what needed to be said.
Well, I mean, I look back on it and some of the best, most wonderful moments of my life happened because I took that leap. But I also
Mm,
gave up a lot. I have an adult
yeah.
son, have two granddaughters, and I look back at my son's life and I'm like, man, so many opportunities were lost because I had to focus on, like, our
Yeah.
entire family worked in the business. My son started working at the business in second
Oh,
grade.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it had to succeed,
Yes.
right? There was
Yeah.
no other choice. But I mean, he didn't play little league, not because he couldn't or didn't
Right.
want to, but because how are we going to take him to practice and games to do all of that, building this business? So there's
Hmm.
a massive amount of sacrifice that happens. Now, there's a massive amount of reward,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So, but if you want to be in the middle of the road, entrepreneurship is not middle of the road. It's
Mm,
always high, low, high, low, high, low. It's never just an easy straight down the middle. You're not just clocking in at 9 and clocking out at 5 and taking home your paycheck and having the rest of your time to yourself. You're not taking, there were 14 years in our business that we did
hmm.
not take a family vacation, even for a long weekend.
Wow. That's a long time.
That's a long time, right?
Yes.
Because you've got to be focused. But when you're called to do it, it's not painful to do it.
Mm, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. If you're not called, if you don't have to do it, don't make that leap.
Mm,
So make
that's
sure
excellent
you're
advice.
hearing that I've got to do this, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's a lot of sacrifice to make to do it successfully. A lot of people take that leap
Yes.
and are not successful,
Hmm.
and that has its own pain and its own scarring that happens. So,
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, really great advice, truly. Okay, so you are speaking now. What are some of the topics? Who are you speaking to? If somebody wants to get in touch with you, how would they go about it?
probably the easiest way to get in touch with me is through LinkedIn. So, I would
Okay.
encourage you to find me there. All things healthcare, healthcare reform, healthcare strategy, employers that are looking to understand more about what is this mess and how do we fix it and how do we get the courage to fix it. So
Mm,
people that are looking for, you know, I'm uncomfortable, but I don't know where to go or what to do.
right.
Those kinds of folks, I love to meet up with them. People that are on their entrepreneurial journey and are, trying to figure out how does my faith fit in with this. Um,
Mm.
Often speak with those folks. I'm working right now with a lot of people,
Right.
believe it or not, in mental health counseling. So,
Oh,
there's
wow.
a real shortage of mental health providers across the US. And
Hmm.
even though there's mental health parity, the way
Yes.
insurance treats
Hmm.
mental health providers isn't always super cool. And mental health providers want to treat patients. They don't want to be messing with paperwork and billing and prior auths
Yeah.
and denials. And, they don't want to mess with all that. So there's a
Yep.
big move in the mental health market now that's kind of mirroring what we saw happening with direct primary care, where mental health
Mm,
providers are, I'll treat you as a patient. Here's how much it costs. You pay me up front. I'll try and help
mhm.
you with whatever you need so you can submit it for reimbursement. But it'll be interesting to watch. Direct primary care, I think, has been pretty successful with that
Yeah,
model. Looking still for some longitudinal studies on ROI on that. But I think we
right.
all can agree it's at least a break even, right?
Yeah.
We're
Hmm.
not overspending on direct primary care by any stretch of the imagination. And the quality of care is so much better,
So much better.
so
Yeah.
much better. So I think we can all preliminarily say this is a success, even if there's not
Hmm.
a huge ROI to it. So what? If it breaks
Yeah.
even, that's good enough. I think we're going to see the same thing happening in mental health before too
Mm,
much longer. I don't know how patients are going to respond to that, although many patients are so desperate that they're willing to do anything to get a
yeah.
good counselor to help them. So it will be interesting to see. If we adopt more of like the dentist model,
Yes. Yeah.
it could work. That could be a big step toward
Mm.
healthcare reform.
That would be really exciting. We definitely need to continue to help. And there's so much. I mean, I know just even trying to get a therapist can be a huge undertaking. So giving them therapists another way to collect payments and making it more accessible for patients is a huge win. So that's very exciting.
Well, and that's another area where AI governance is going to be absolutely crucial to have
Mm,
clinicians involved in AI developed for the purposes of counseling.
yes. Yes. Oh, good point. Oh, AI is, yeah, there's a lot. There's so many things that you could speak on and bring. Again, your knowledge and wisdom. I see your books in the background. I assume Amazon everybody can go and grab a copy.
Absolutely. Hope to have a
Okay.
couple more coming out here in the near future, so watch for those.
That's so exciting. Okay, great. Well, maybe when you have another book, we'll have you back on. And thank you so much for your time and sharing with all the listeners. And again, if you want to find Nurse Deb, you can find her on LinkedIn and reach out and book her for speaking engagements or pick her brain. She's a wealth of knowledge. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing everyone on the next Born for Greatness podcast.